So I'm over at the Department for Science, Innovation, Technology, and I'm working in the AI group there. So I've been in the group for about 2 years and working on various things, I suppose a bit more internal to government. So a lot of, I'll come on to speak about this, but the AI Opportunities Action Plan and how we can get all departments kind of lined up behind the actions we set out there. But more recently, so as of July, I joined the public compute team, so looking far more at the UK compute roadmap and also more specifically the AI research resource, and I'm focusing on basically developing the allocation model for that. So that's kind of where I'm coming from as I talk a bit more today. Just as it'd be really interesting just to get a bit more of a sense of the room. So by a show of hands, if everyone's happy to do this, I just wanted to get a sense. Who has heard of the AI research resource? Okay, great. I like to see that. And has anyone either used it or applied to use the AI research resource? Okay, we've got one hand. I'll take that. And then if the second part of the presentation is on the compute roadmap, has anyone by any chance read that in any detail? We have got a couple as well. That's good. So hopefully this isn't too much of a kind of a run through of what you already know, and is like a bit of a potted summary of what it is that we're trying to do with the 10-point plan over the next 10 years. But I'm really keen just to do, before kind of properly diving in, a bit of framing as to, it might seem obvious to you, but why is compute really important to government? So as I mentioned, we published the AI Opportunities Action Plan back in in January. And the government's been really clear that we're viewing AI as a lever for national renewal. So if we have the plan for change where we want to apply AI to healthcare, we want to make the UK a clean energy superpower, and we want to enhance crime detection, these are all things that we'll be viewing AI as really crucial and critical for. But as you will all know, in order to kind of apply AI to all these things, we need to have compute. So it's going to take time and strategic coordination to get ourselves in a place where we have the ecosystem that enables us to do that, not just for the current demand for compute, but also for the future. So let me see, I've got the right slides. So I thought I'd start with the AI research resource, just because this is the area that I have slightly more knowledge on. So the AI research resource, which I'll refer to as AIR in and out, is kind of our flagship program where we're providing public compute capacity. At the moment, this is formed of Dawn at the University of Cambridge and then Isambard AI at the University of Bristol, which we launched this summer. And we have also committed to expanding our compute resource by 20-fold by 2030, and we're intending to start that this financial year. Perhaps the crowd might not be aware, but we've published a procurement notice 3 weeks ago for cloud services. So that might be of interest to note. That's kind of what's coming up in the near future. And then I thought I'd give a bit more background as to the compute roadmap itself. So bearing in mind that I expect that to be sitting within kind of the wider plan that we have with the roadmap. So in terms of what our vision is as government, we're very much keen to shift towards an outcomes-driven approach to compute. So making sure that it's being directed to the highest priorities and the most transformative opportunities. Really important, we want to make sure that we're supporting a broad range of users. So it's not just frontier AI development, it's also making sure that we're focusing on AI adoption where it's kind of coming into people's daily workflows too. We want to build a diverse and resilient mix of compute infrastructure services. So if I've already referred to kind of cloud services, but also on-premise and spanning public and private, national platforms, regional hubs. So we're kind of really looking at something that's wholesale here in our roadmap. And then finally, in terms of the vision, we would like to see the compute ecosystem dynamic and adaptable. So making sure that we're staying on top of the developments and able to kind of keep pace with the technology. So What I will do is, you can see there are 4 broad kind of groups of actions. And what I'll do is I'll run through each of these groups of actions and just give you a bit of a flavour of kind of the government thinking and what we're aiming with in each of these spaces. And at the end, what I'd actually be really interested in, whether it's questions that you have for me based on this, but also this feels like a bit of an opportunity for me to kind of get some feedback and reflections as well. So it doesn't always have to be a question. And these are things that I can also bring back to the team. So it's really important to kind of hear your views too. So starting with building a modern public compute ecosystem. So UK government will be investing 2 billion into what will be 2 new supercomputers and the AI research resource that I've spoken about. So in terms of the air, over the next 5 years, we're expecting to invest 1 billion for the expansion of the programme. We're looking to have a blended model, as I said, in terms of on-premise and cloud services. And in essence, this enables us to be flexible and resilient in terms of the systems that we're building. We're looking to leverage public and private partnerships. And as I've kind of already mentioned, an evolving investment strategy so we can respond to the market and technology. In addition to this, we have the Edinburgh Parallel Computing Centre, where 750 million will be spent on building a new supercomputer to replace Archer 2. And we're expecting this to come online likely in 2027. The second action we have here is around creating national supercomputing centres. So I think one of the takeaways I'd say for here is this is one of the key ways that we're looking to really build join up across the system. So if I'm focusing on the public compute side at the moment, there will also be a kind of a private side that I'll come to as well. So in terms of national supercomputing centres, these are intended to be hubs to consolidate existing strengths and foster collaboration. Things that we want to do here are build high performance computing, making large scale data sets available. So some of the flagship kind of programs in DSIT that kind of fit into this large scale data piece are around the National Data Library, but also the Health Data Research Service with our colleagues over at the Department for Health and Social Care. Additionally, and beyond this, we're looking at trusted research environments, software and skills programs, noting that these are really core enablers, and also test beds for new architectures and emerging tech. So in essence, the national supercomputing centres are really a focal point for all of these things in our mind. Third action is international collaboration and partnerships. So building on what already exists, but making sure that we're enabling the UK to access capacity and architectures that are not currently available here at the moment. I would say perhaps worth noting, we had the France-UK summit in the summer. So that's an example of some of the kind of the new work we're doing in the international collaboration space, but also similarly beginning conversations and exploratory work with Canada. Also through these kind of partnerships, we're looking to enhance skills and knowledge exchanges and develop new platforms to research collaboration. So in terms of these 3 actions, as the UK government, we're aiming to really transform the public compute ecosystem. In terms of the next bucket, so this is the area that I've been working on for the past almost 3 months. So I'm perhaps a bit more confident on. I thought rather than pulling out the actions, actually, I'd reflect on the principles that we're using to guide what we're trying to do here in terms of allocation. So we have backing national priorities. I referred to the fact that we think and view compute as kind of a really AI and compute as a really important lever for national renewal. So one of the things we are really keen to do is shape demand around our kind of national missions and priorities in government. Big bets over small wins. So Isambard AI is a very large system, and we'd like to kind of basically capitalize on having so much capacity to really kind of put our support behind big and transformational projects that kind of on the other side, the output will be kind of real world impact and really transformational outcomes. So that's one of the things we're really keen to build into the allocation model we have. Moving fast, this is basically trying to break through bureaucracy as far as possible. And then inclusivity, but not equality. So where we're kind of, what the approach with this is, we are looking to have tracks that enable lots of different types of compute users to access the system. So that's cutting across kind of public sector institutions, academia, industry. But the interest will be in projects with the really clearest outcomes and the most credible plans over just kind of a really broad distribution. I suppose this speaks to big bets over small wins as well. And then finally, acting fast in times of crisis. So again, this is an asset, a national asset, and should we have public health crises, security scenarios, want to make sure that we're able to deploy the capacity to support those efforts. And so with those 5 principles in mind, what we have already kind of set out is 3 different tracks, and this is the kind of the structure and the way that we are looking at allocation. So we have strategic AI functions, which broadly aligns with the action 5 in the roadmap. And this is providing dedicated access to the sovereign AI unit in DSIT, which has been recently established, and also the AI Security Institute. So making sure that we're joining up internally in the department and government to support them to meet their missions with their compute needs. We have the R&D for national priorities, and this one is more focused on medium to long term allocations, particularly supporting that kind of multidisciplinary, collaborative kind of piece, and particularly focused on national missions, if I've spoken about those. And then the third track will be open access. So at the end of the presentation, when I open up for kind of reflections and questions, I'll pop the QR codes in case anyone's interested in working out where you can apply. But open access is the route that we currently have open. And these are kind of far more like shorter term project-based allocations, really interested in early stage innovation, experimentation. So hopefully you'll see that across these different tracks, we've got quite a mix of, I suppose, types of AI workflows that we're aiming to support, and speaks to that point around kind of inclusivity of access. Moving on to the third bucket of actions, we have keeping the UK at the cutting edge of AI development. So in this space, we are looking to deliver large-scale AI infrastructure through the AI growth zones. And what are these in practice? They are designated sites across the UK with enhanced access to power and streamlined planning support. We're really keen on using government's position to broker partnerships to crowd in billions of funding, particularly given the scale of what we're trying to deliver with this kind of AI infrastructure. These are due to be designed to deliver 5 gigawatts of AI data center capacity by 2030 across 5 different sites. So we've already announced Culham as one of the sites, which is the headquarters of the UK Atomic Energy Authority. And we've also announced the North East Combined Authority, where there'll be 2 sites at Blythe and Cobalt Park. And one thing I'd also like to raise around AI growth zones is also that we're looking to support a range of workloads. So it's both training and inference. The next action, action 7, is around new models for energy infrastructure. So we know that it is a challenge, kind of a global challenge, to find sustainable means to power compute capacity. And I think it's good to note that the UK has some deep strengths in energy innovation. We're already a global leader in offshore wind, with rapidly growing base of solar, battery and flexible grid technologies. We've committed to new generation of nuclear, including small modular reactors. And so our intention really as UK government is that AI growth zones will provide the physical and policy environment to bring these technologies together in a new and more integrated fashion. We would also like to have AI growth zones harnessed for national and local benefit. So in particular, we would expect R&D and innovation platforms, specifically research pilots that push the boundaries of applied AI and create conditions for deployable solutions. For example, this could be in including trialing advanced robotics, automated services. We'd also look for AI growth zones to support adoption test beds. crucially working with local partners in this endeavour. And this goes from kind of healthcare to transport, energy to local government, and the pilots will be a means by which we can integrate AI into critical systems and services. And thirdly, AI workforce and talent, as I said, critical enablers here, working with industry, investors and local partners to deliver projects that support the upskilling of local workforces to adopt AI. In terms of when this is due to commence, we're expecting to be able to start development of our first AI growth zone by the end of the year, and onward sites will also include Scotland and Wales. You may be happy to hear this is the final bucket. You've heard a lot of my voice. The final bucket is what I quite like to refer to as the 3 S's. I don't think you'll meet any other official that's calling it the 3 S's, but you can take my word. Creating sovereign, secure and sustainable capability. So to start, it's important to note that sovereignty doesn't mean isolation and self-sufficiency. Actually, what we're trying to do is ensure that we have the ability to act independently and effectively where it matters most. So, for example, if I've mentioned on allocation for national priorities, we're also looking at protecting sensitive data and supporting UK research, innovation and public services on their own terms. The 9th action, I haven't got them written on the board, but 9th action is that we want to support British companies to develop sustainable and secure compute technologies. So we have a pretty unique opportunity with AI growth zones to use multiple platforms that I've spoken about today to pull through homegrown technology solutions. National supercomputing centres are also really important for this, and acting as a trusted proving ground to test, validate, benchmark and deploy emerging technologies. So in essence, our ambition is to support the most successful UK developed technologies into commercial at-scale deployments in the growth zones, as I've mentioned. And then finally, we have set compute as a priority for our recently established Sovereign AI Unit, which I kind of nodded to earlier. The Sovereign AI Unit is due to be backed by 500 million at the spending review, and is focused on unlocking opportunities where targeted public intervention can support UK leadership, it can scale national champions, and it can secure long-term strategic advantage. We have already established strategic partnerships through memorandums of understanding with Anthropic, Cohere and OpenAI. So really, we're just at the beginning of some of the work here. So I think with that, I will stop. I promised you some QR codes on the screen. So very welcome to kind of access those when you want to. But yeah, I will stop there and I will open to any reflections or questions.
Thank you, Christina. First question. Yeah.
Thanks very much for that whirlwind tour. That was very exciting. I'm very conscious that if we look at the compute roadmap and those points that you highlighted on the sides, there's a lot of prototyping, there's a lot of testing and trialing. We're going to have a go at doing some new stuff, and this is not to say that that's a bad thing. That's a great thing. But I kind of wondered how the feedback loop works. So let's imagine I went to the hospital across the road for a clinic appointment recently, and I discovered that all the conversations with my consultant were being recorded and transcribed using an AI tool. I only knew about it because there was a poster on the wall. Nobody ever mentioned it. And it struck me that some of these things may be very interesting experiments, but maybe not really the way we want to go in the future. And I kind of wondered if you've got a process in place, how does that look if you're kind of taking the feedback from these test beds, prototypes, trials, and so on? Because the language obviously has to be very kind of forthright, and we're going to inject AI into everything, but it won't work for everything, right? Thank
So
you.
I think it's a great question, and I'd maybe reflect on the kind of the timing. So the compute roadmap was published in July, and we're kind of, in our minds, I think we're at the beginning of the kind of the next 5 years, if a lot of our funding is up to 2030. So I think it's a brilliant point, and there are a couple of the kind of the actions in the spaces that I've raised today where we're talking particularly about deployable solutions. So there is the kind of the testing aspect, prototyping, experimentation, but we are also really clear that we'd like it to kind of see this through to scaling up and also kind of AI adoption. So we have the two sides, I think, in terms of what a specific process looks like. Not quite there, but it's a brilliant question.
James.
One of the points you highlighted around allocation is the importance of using compute to respond in crisis. I was involved in the COVID response, doing some of the modeling that led to national R numbers and those kind of things. And can you say more about planning for the use of the National AI Research Resource and the ecosystem in the context of future national crises, and how we access skills, HPC people as reservists for these things, those kind of things? I don't know. I'm curious about that aspect.
Again, another really interesting question. Maybe what I'll say in response to that is the kind of the stage that we're at the moment is if I had the 3 different routes up on the screen, and at the moment only the kind of strategic AI function and the open access is open and available for people to kind of get themselves onto air systems. We're still kind of in the process of looking at that R&D for national priorities and what those kind of national missions, and how do we kind of begin to get research of that nature onto the system. So I suppose as part of those conversations, we're trying to work out how to begin to do something that's a bit more holistic, as you say, around the kind of the skills, the people that we need to kind of deploy in those scenarios. But in essence, a bit more thinking needs to be done on that. And the reason why it continues to be on every single slide when I go and speak to people is I want to make sure it doesn't fall off the list. Just because it's not one of those 3 tracks doesn't mean it's not something that we're trying to do in government. So I think it's a great reflection.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, it's good to see these initiatives. But I do have a question. You mentioned the use of AI for crime detection. And considering we just had a panel on trustworthiness and interpretability, are there perhaps ethical considerations for such a thing? Like if it gets it wrong, right, as AI has made mistakes in the past? Yeah, have the ethics been considered?
A good question, and I'd say that ethics will always be considered in what we're trying to do. So I suppose this to some extent speaks to the kind of the testing and piloting. Should there be ethical concerns for any of the kind of solutions or services that we want to roll out, we should be able to kind of identify those and try to avoid any kind of ethical concerns.
Last call. Yeah.
Hi, so I'm curious, when you talk about budgets for the compute ecosystem, roughly how does that get split between hardware, people, and software?
I'll confess, I don't know what the specific split is. I can only speak to kind of the broader programs that we're directing the funding towards. But I can take the question away if that's something you're interested in.
Mark, do you want to provide a final question?
So you mentioned that you're keen to build international partnerships, and obviously with France, and you mentioned Canada. Do you have particular countries in mind, or is it something that you're kind of exploring where the community is interested in working and where there are overlaps in strategic priorities?
So I say it's probably a bit of a mixture of both. One of the other things, it came into my inbox just this morning that I'd flag is I've got it written down here, is the Euro HPC joint undertaking. We as DSIT are funding UK teams. I think it's up to 3.9 million. across 3 of the calls for the year HPC JE, specifically to develop and optimize exascale, AI-ready software, tool chains, and workflows of national importance. So there are kind of a lot of things in the works. The France and the Canada are, I suppose, examples. We had the US UK prosperity deal, which we announced at the time of the US state visit. So I suppose there are some countries, but we're also quite interested in understanding more about who the researchers themselves are working with. So it's a kind of a push and a pull, I'd say.
Christina, Kerr, thank you so much for closing the conference.
Thank you.